For those of you who don't know, Blizzard is actually releasing 3 separate raids in the first tier of Midnight. The boss we are covering today is Chimaerus. He is the solo boss of the Dream Rift raid, and according to Blizzard, should be as difficult as a typical 4th boss, which, judging by Blizzard's past 4th bosses, means he'll either die in one pull like Rashinan, or be nearly impossible to kill like Forge Weaver or Styx Bunk Junker until they're nerfed into the ground. Great! Chimaerus is extremely reminiscent of Bloodbound Horror in Nerebar Palace, and like all other bosses covered so far in the Voidspire raid, it's a main target boss fight with spawning adds to AoE down. As with Bloodbound Horror, your raid will be split into 2 different phases. The down phase team handles adds first, and then can DPS boss with any remaining time, and the up phase team will be on boss first and then handle adds. Just like the other bosses we've already covered, Chimaerus is going to favor classes that can do both single target boss damage and short cooldown AoE. Although the best classes will be those who do decent AoE but strong priority target damage, as one of the adds has about 3 times as much health as the others. The boss will put a group soak on the current tank, and anyone who soaks it will be sent downstairs for 40 seconds, where adds will spawn shortly afterwards. Note, the soak does knock you pretty high in the air, so any classes who have movement canceling abilities, this is a great place to use them. Otherwise, you will take a small amount of fall damage. While downstairs, simply DPS the adds until their shield breaks, after which they'll be ported up. Once an add ports up, it will fixate the boss, and the upstairs team must kill it before it reaches him. Adds will drop a puddle underneath them when they transition from down to up, and players will get a dispellable debuff with a giant circle on them that will clear this. Simply stand near the puddle and call for a dispel, but make sure no other players are standing in your circle, because if you get dispelled with someone else in your circle, they will get knocked up into the air and take a dot that stacks. There are 3 different add types downstairs, but the only things you need to know is there's one big add that you should focus off of, and there's a couple medium adds that need to be interrupted on their fear cast. The medium adds that do the fear cast also have another cast that just does bolt damage, and you should probably save interrupts for the fear to make sure you don't miss one, as the fear will fear everyone in the raid. If the damage caused by the bolts on live is too much, you could try and have range DPS with longer interrupt CDs save their interrupt to try and catch the fear, and have melee players interrupt bolts, but this does make it more likely that you'll probably miss a fear cast. If you are downstairs and kill the adds early, you're free to just go smack the boss until your 40 seconds are up. Upstairs, the boss will cast a baitable frontal at a random player. It's unclear to me if this frontal hits players both in the down and up phase, so it's probably a good idea to just bait it away from everyone. After some time, the boss will cast Consume, and if there are any adds left alive at the end of this channel, he will eat them and enrage. So make sure you've nuked them all down. Players in opposite phases will now do damage to each other if they're within 8 yards, so you'll have to play similar to Mythic Denathrius P3 or Mythic Silken Court. It is not a one-shot to touch someone in the opposite phase, but it is going to hurt. The boss will pick 2 players downstairs, and after a short time will horrify them and anyone else within 5 yards. Once horrified, an upstairs player will need to stand on them to soak them. Think Dimensius P1 gravities, but you don't have to move while soaking them. Once they finish soaking, those 2 people will swap phases. The boss will fly away and take 99% reduced damage and shoot beams across the room that spawn both adds and area denial. Simply kill all the adds and bring the dispel debuffs to the area denial to clear the room. After 2 or 3 sets of this, the boss will land, and if any adds are left alive, he will eat them and enrage. On Mythic, right before the boss starts his P2 phase, he will do another group soak to send half the raid downstairs, and you will play intermission with one group in both phases. Adds will spawn both downstairs and up, so they will need to be handled by each team separately. However, the adds downstairs this time don't go upstairs after they're killed. Here are the timings based on the latest testing, and as always, these are linked in the description down below, so feel free to take a look. For the most part, this fight is pretty straightforward, and as a DPS player, that's all you really need to know. If you like the video, follow me on Twitch, where I'll be streaming keys and progression once the patch goes live, and feel free to put any comments down below to help make these videos better, as I'm trying to improve my content creation skills. This fight is pretty straightforward from a raid perspective, and the main thing to remember is that adds are #1 priority, and if they're ever alive, everyone should be switching to them. When thinking of raid comp, you will need to split your raid into 2 separate groups since there is a debuff that stops you from going downstairs twice in a row. It will be a good idea to have both priority and AoE damage in both groups. DKs are insanely powerful for control, and having one in each group is a great idea to trivialize ads. Abilities like Monk Ring of Peace and Hunter Binding Shot are also very good to have in both groups, as when they are upstairs, they can stop all ads from reaching the boss. As a team, it will be a good idea to set specific locations for where you want the boss and ads to be tanked so that ads don't immediately walk into the boss once they port up. This will also help on Mythic to ensure that your downstairs and upstairs teams are not coming in contact with each other. It is also a good idea to set a bait point away from the downstairs team so it doesn't interfere with people on Mythic trying to soak the horrified people. In the videos I saw of latest testing, the horrify mechanic always seems to choose 1 DPS and 1 healer downstairs. If that makes it to live, you should definitely try and plan which healer upstairs is going to swap with the downstairs one. You can also assign 1 DPS in each group to be the swap player as well, preferably a mobile ranged class. Hunters. The only real strategy for P2 is to try to have a strong plan to keep your groups separate for Mythic. I would recommend trying to bait the beam directly through middle like this, so that each group has an easily identifiable half of the room that they can play on. If you bait one of the beams here instead, it can be difficult for players in one phase to know which side of the beam they should dodge to, and might end up colliding with players from the other. The main mechanic for healers to know about is Caustic Phlegm, which does pulsing AoE damage to the entire raid for 12 seconds and is cast roughly every 25 seconds. This does about 50% of all of the unavoidable damage of the fight, so it's really the main mechanic to focus around for healing CDs. Obviously, this tuning may change come live, but it's the best we can do going into week 1. Planning your healing CDs for Mythic may be difficult if it is true that one healer is always swapped from downstairs to up. You will have one guaranteed person in each group because you can assign one healer from upstairs to always be the one that swaps, so you will know one healer will be down and one healer will be up, but the other 2 will be random. The only other thing to pay attention to besides heal players who have mechanics is that the boss will put a heal absorb on the entire raid every time he spawns ads. However, this doesn't appear to be too large, as it only made up about 8% of the total healing in this log. This fight should feel a bit more relaxed for tanks after the chaos of Fallen King Salad Bar. The positioning requirements aren't nearly as strict, and the main thing to do is just make sure you have a place to tank the ads away from the boss. It will help the raid be significantly more consistent if you are quick to group the ads so they can be cleaved down together. This can be difficult if you have DPS blowing the ads up the moment they spawn, so just make sure to yell at them to let you position first. Even though positioning is significantly easier on this fight, the upstairs tank should always know where the ads are in case they might need to kite the boss slightly away. Other than that, you're basically just taking boss melees for 5 minutes. So sit back, sip a cup of coffee, and watch all the other streams of tanks failing to kite Fallen King. That's so gross. That's like 3 days old.